Mexico, and it's been a really impressive visit. And I'm going to take the next 20 minutes or so to tell you about my research field. I'll start with a general introduction, and then I'll go into studies that we're focusing on. In my lab, we basically focus on the gut bacteria in pregnancy and infancy, and we also focus on how gut bacteria influence behavior. This is basically you. We're covered with bacteria inside and outside. About 2 kilograms of our body weight are bacteria. We have more bacteria than human cells. And yesterday we noticed that when looking at this painting, even Diego Rivera acknowledged the importance of bacteria. Okay? So they're a very important part of our life. And during this talk, I'm going to try to convince you in 3 things. And please don't believe me, okay? I'm going to try to convince you that pregnancy is a disease. I'm going to try to convince you that antibiotics do horrible things. And I'm going to try to convince you that the microbiome is responsible for everything. Okay, all 3 points are not correct. Pregnancy is not a disease. Antibiotics save lives, and we wouldn't be here without antibiotics. And the gut microbiome is important, but it's not responsible for everything. If you look at PubMed, this is what's been going on in the past 10 years or so. We see this huge increase in publications about the gut microbiome. And why is this increase? We see it because of 2 main reasons. One is a change in the way we think, and the other is a change in technology. I'll start with the thinking. We were all taught that bacteria are bad for you. If bacteria cause disease, we need to give antibiotics, otherwise we'll get sick. This has completely changed. We do not believe in good and bad bacteria anymore. And we know that this is not the case. Bacteria don't act alone. This is the case. Bacteria live in communities, okay? Trillions of bacteria together, and the ratios between different bacteria, or between these communities of bacteria, is what causes, or is caused by disease. For example, Helicobacter pylori, which we all know we're taught is a pathogen and we need to treat with antibiotics, actually is a member of the microbiota of most of us, and it doesn't do any harm. So we need to change the way we think and not to look at bacteria as single species. For example, we're actually ecologists. So we look at bacteria from the top. And when we look at bacterial communities, we look, for example, at phyla. And E. coli is a member of the Proteobacteria phyla. And each one of these phyla has thousands of different bacteria. 90% of your gut bacteria belong to either firmicutes or Bacteroidetes. Okay? Each one of these has thousands of different bacteria. So we now think as bacteria as communities, and as communities that act together. And the second was another change. And the change is technology. We were taught that in order to identify bacteria, we need to culture them, grow them on petri dishes, and then identify them. Does anyone want to take a guess what percentage of the bacteria in the world we can grow in the lab? Less
5%.
Less than 1%. If we talk about the world, with the oceans, with soil, plants, we can culture in the lab less than 1%. So we advanced, and we use molecular techniques now. We can identify trillions of different bacteria without culturing even one. But just by looking at the DNA or the RNA. We can look at the metabolites and tell you exactly what these communities are doing in a given sample. We can tell you what they can do, what they're expressing, and all of this is without culturing even a single bacterium. And this actually allowed us to do the Human Microbiome Project. Luckily for me, I had a great honor that part of my postdoc was a part of this project, and we basically set out to characterize the microbiome of a healthy adult, American adult. And this is important because the American is not a Mexican or an Israeli. And a healthy American is not a healthy Israeli, for example. But we sequenced 250 individuals, women at 18 body sites, men at 15 body sites, and identified all of their bacteria. 5 years of work, this is what we got. Each circle here is a microbiome. Each circle is made up of trillions of bacteria. The closer circles are, the more similar the microbiomes are. The further they are apart, the more different. And we can see here that each part of the human body has its own bacterial communities. And if everyone in this room would sequence their bacteria, then my gut bacteria will probably be more similar to your gut bacteria than to my own oral bacteria. Because we'll all be here in our gut bacteria, and our oral bacteria will be here. Now it's even more than that. If we look inside the oral cavity, the cheek is not the same as the tongue, or the saliva, or the tooth. So millimeters apart, we have different microbiomes according to the function they need to carry out. But most studies, even as the study that we'll hear about in the next talk, focus on the gut. And why is that? It's because most of the microbiome is located there. And these bacteria really help us. There's a good symbiosis. We give them a place to live, we give them food, and in return they degrade nutrients that we don't know how to degrade. They train our immune system, especially in the first 3 years of life. They colonize our bodies and then don't let other bacteria come in. And we now start to understand that these bacteria can actually communicate with us. So these bacteria, and this is something we're very interested in, can sense hormones that we secrete and react to it. These bacteria can also excrete hormones, and we can feel those hormones. For example, we'll mention behavior, serotonin, the hormone of happiness. Where is it located? Where is most of the serotonin in our body? In the brain. No, 90% is in the gut. Okay, bacteria produce serotonin, and we know to react to that serotonin. So there's a symbiosis, okay? But there's also dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is a shift in the microbiome, changes in the microbiome. Now this is not cause and effect, okay? This is a change. For example, in IBD, Crohn's and colitis, I don't know the percentages in Mexico, but in Israel this is a huge problem, it's growing. We see an increase in 2 phyla, Proteobacteria and Actinobacteria. Clostridium difficile infection, what we treat with fecal transplants, increase in Proteobacteria. Necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a disease that kills preterm infants. Proteobacteria go up. So we see these big changes in microbial communities, but the most studied changes happen in obesity. And this is what happens when you look at obese individuals on a diet for 1 year. As they lose weight, the 2 major phyla change. These guys have less firmicutes, more bacteroidetes, okay, on a diet over a year. If we look at mice, okay, this is an OB mouse. It has no leptin, so it doesn't stop eating, and it gets to these dimensions. If we look at the bacteria, we see the same phenomenon. The fatter the mouse is, the more firmicutes, the less bacteroidetes. But what does this mean? This is very nice, and this is a nice characterization. Are the bacteria actually doing something here? So for that, we have very unique animals, which are called germ-free mice. These are mice that are grown in these isolators, okay, and they're completely germ-free. They've never seen a bacteria in their life. This is in our lab, in Bar-Ilan, and everything that these bacteria, these mice see, comes through this port, or we can take them out and feed them bacteria, do a fecal transplant, and see what the bacteria do to them. So the classic experiment is to look at the obese and lean mice, take their gut microbiota, give it to these germ-free animals, and what you see is the mice that got bacteria from the fat mice gain weight, whereas these guys stay leaner. So by transferring bacteria, we transfer the phenotype, we transfer obesity. We can also do it with metabolic syndrome. Same thing. Take a sick mouse and transfer parts of the phenotype. We can do it from humans to mice. Okay, twins, where one is obese and one is lean. Again, transfer the phenotype. Now this is very clever. I mean, we're making mice fat. Can we make mice lean? So not yet, but what we did show is that we can prevent weight gain. We carried out an experiment with Twins UK, where we looked for genetic influence of the host and the microbiome. We didn't find much, but we did find that all lean twins had more of this certain bacteria. So we took bacteria from a fat twin, an obese twin. We gave it to the mice, they got fat. We took the same bacteria, we added this bacterium, and they stayed lean. And we're now continuing to look if we can utilize this certain bacteria to our advantage. So, I've shown you that the microbiome changes, certain diseases changes, our life changes it, certain situations in life, and then we are very interested in pregnancy. Okay, pregnancy is a very unique period, lots of changes in the human body, and a lot of them, or some of them, are similar to metabolic syndrome. And I've shown you that metabolic syndrome, bacteria take part of the phenotype. So what happens in pregnancy? We looked at 91 women together with a group from Finland. Throughout pregnancy, first, third, and 1 month postpartum. We looked at the babies, we knew everything about these women, we analyzed their microbiomes, and what we saw was that in first trimester, all the microbiomes clustered together. In third trimester, 1 month postpartum, the microbiomes spread apart. Okay? So first trimesters, similar microbiomes. Third trimester, different microbiomes. What does this mean? I took this data and compared it to the Human Microbiome Project, and what we saw was that first trimester behaved normal, and something is happening throughout pregnancy that causes the microbiome to change. Okay, this is the HMP, this is first trimester, we see nice clustering, and in third trimester, we see this spreading on the graph. So what's going on here? If we look at who's changing, we see that in third trimester, proteobacteria and actinobacteria increase. Now this might sound familiar to you because I described this in Crohn's and colitis. This is the final level. If we want to see which bacteria are changing, we can use some more advanced computing techniques and see that in first trimester, we have a lot of short-chain fatty acid producers. Now these are, short-chain fatty acids is the end product of bacterial fermentation in your gut. And they're good for our immune system, our nervous system, and considered beneficial in general. So the bacteria that are producing these acids are up in first trimesters. But as pregnancy progresses, these guys go down, and we see an introduction of opportunistic pathogens. If we look at the immune system, this is nothing new. The immune system changes in pregnancy. So all of this together hints to the involvement of microbiome. So I took samples from first and third trimester women, took the germ-free animals, and gavaged and did a fecal transplant from these females to these mice. Mice that got feces from third trimester women gained more weight and developed low-grade inflammation compared to the same mice that got first trimester samples of the same women. Okay, so bacteria transferred part of the phenotype in pregnancy, and we're not trying to understand what's going on here. But I'm describing a disease-like microbiome, which is not diseased in this case. And this microbiome is actually what's being transferred to the kids. So what's going on here? We know that the biggest exposure to bacteria happens at birth. Okay, when the baby goes through the birth canal, it's exposed to trillions of different bacteria, and this is basically what it sees. So immediately one should ask what happens in C-sections. These are babies born C-section. They're very similar to their mother's skin microbiome. These are babies born vaginally. They're very similar to the mother's vaginal microbiome. I'm not saying that this is good and this is bad, okay? But this is what nature wanted. So some groups are taking this a step further, and we now are starting to see something that's called vaginal seeding. And if you Google vaginal seeding, this is a protocol. Basically says before C-section, take your your vaginal microbiota, sample it. Once the baby is born, put it in his mouth, wipe its face, wipe its body, and hope for the best. 3 months ago, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology published a comment, do not do this at home. Okay, only part of experiments, as there's still no proof that this does anything good. So what's going on with the kids? 1 month, 6 months, 4 years old. So at 4 years, we see a clustering of the microbiome. And we know that it takes the microbiome about 2 to 3 years to stabilize. And I tried to understand what was going on through that period. So this is a baby, this is a meconium, this is the first stool a baby gives. This is the human microbiome process. You can see that this baby starts out next to the vaginal community of these women. And it starts to grow, starts to age, and the microbiome grows with it. And we know how to explain all of these changes. We know exactly what happens here. Okay, we had a very detailed diary about this baby. And we see that as the baby grows older, the microbiome changes from a vagina-like microbiome to a gut-like microbiome. And we're almost there at 27 months. We're almost down at the bottom. And then we have this spike. What went on here? This is, sorry? Antibiotics, exactly. Okay? The baby was sick, got antibiotics. We know a lot about antibiotics. We know that they stop the disease, we know that they stop the spread of the community, we know that they cause resistance, but we don't know what they do to the microbiome, especially in early life. So this is the next experiment I'm going to describe. We took pregnant mice, and we gave these mice, a mouse's pregnancy is 3 weeks. From the last week of pregnancy throughout the lactation, which is another 3 weeks, we gave them penicillin. So the mothers got 4 weeks of penicillin. The babies, the offspring, got 3 weeks of exposure because we weaned them at 3 weeks of age. So they lactate for 3 weeks, and then we stop lactation and they go into solid food. So we sampled the offspring at 3 weeks of age, so exactly when they stopped lactating, and at 6 weeks of age, so 3 weeks later. Of course, the mother's microbiome changed, they got penicillin. But when we look at the offspring, the microbiome changed too. So something was going on through the mother's milk to the offspring, changing its microbiome not only at 3 weeks of age, but also at 6 weeks of age, 3 weeks after we stopped antibiotics. 6 weeks of age is almost a teenage mouse, if we compare the ages. And then we decided to look at behavior. As I said, we're very interested in behavior. I'll show you a couple of examples. And We're not the first ones. This is Dr. Henry Cotton. Dr. Henry Cotton was a psychiatrist in Trenton, New Jersey, and Dr. Henry Cotton, in 1910, Dr. Cotton believed that every mental illness began with a bacterial infection. And if you were hospitalized in Dr. Cotton's psychiatric ward, you would start out by taking out your teeth, because he thought that that was the first place that the bacterial infection can start from. If you got better, you were lucky, because if you didn't get better, he would take out your tonsils. Again, lucky, we stop. Not lucky, we keep on going. Eventually, parts of your colon come out, and eventually you die. So, you were either cured on the way, died, or stayed crazy, but it gave him 80% success rate at that time. Both his sons with no teeth committed suicide, and Henry himself had a nervous breakdown, so it didn't really work. Okay, but he was onto something. He was onto what we call today the gut-brain axis. So how bacteria in our gut influence our brain. So let's go back to the offspring that got antibiotics from their mothers. We carried out 2 tests. One is an open field, one is an elevated plasmids. Open field, a scared mouse, an anxious mouse, will spend more time next to the walls. A risk-taking mouse, exploratory mouse, will spend more time in the center. We did the elevated plasmids. A scared mouse will spend more time in the closed arms, whereas an exploratory mouse will spend more time in the open arms. Significantly, all offspring that got antibiotics were less anxious and more risk-taking. We saw effects in the brain. Okay? So antibiotics influence behavior now. We see this in other models. We work on flies, for example, where we work with Drosophila, and we look at social behavior. Social behavior we measure in 2 ways. One is male-female, and that's mating preference. And one is male-male, and that's aggression. If we treat flies with antibiotics, they lose their mating preference. Okay, a fly eating a certain diet will be attracted to a fly eating the same diet. We change the diet, we change the preference. We give antibiotics, we eliminate the preference. We reintroduce bacteria, we reintroduce the preference. And this is working through pheromones. We now know that changing the diet, changing the microbiome, we'll hear soon in the next talk. Certain microbes know how to cause the host to secrete certain pheromones, and this is what causes attraction or repulsion. The other experiment we're doing is called social defeat. Imagine a child going to school every day, okay? And outside of school there's a bully, and the bully scares him every day, and then the child goes into school. And this is exactly what we're doing here. We see a bully mouse, a big mouse, and a small mouse. They meet every day for 5 minutes, then we separate between them for 10 days. Okay, so 5 minutes, then almost 24 hours apart, just seeing and smelling. After 10 days, this guy will get depression. After 3 days, this small guy will have bacterial changes. We can transfer these changes to germ-free animals. And this is what makes us think that we might be able to use bacteria to control our behavior. And we call it psychobiotics. Okay, for example, take bacteria that produce serotonin and use it as next generation probiotics. And I'll just sum up this part by these 3 things. Okay, pregnancy is not a disease, antibiotics save lives, and the microbiome is very interesting, but it doesn't explain everything. Thank this wonderful group of people that did all the hard work that you see. And this is the most important. I hope Google translated it correctly.